All right, ladies and gentlemen, just doing a quick walkthrough on my Aston Martin Vantage LT4 swap. So this is a 2007 chassis with a 2015 LT4. So if we're looking up right here, I've got the car up on the lift right now, so it's a little bit easier to see some of this. But I have the accessory drive in place. For anyone curious, what I did is I took a Holley mid-mount accessory drive for the LT4. This is a dry sump engine, and used that. So I put the alternator down low and the water pump up there. Normally up in this area way up here would be an AC compressor. That hits the frame rail, so I had to move that. So on this side, this pulley right here holds a power steering pump, and it's a pretty cool setup because it is the supercharger belt, which holds a lot of tension. So what Holley did is they actually divorced the power steering pump from the pulley itself, so the power steering pump isn't holding any load. But since they needed to have AC, I've moved AC down here. The problem is it doesn't fit there on a supercharged setup, especially the dry sump, I should say. So I designed a custom bracket that holds it there. I added this idler back here that lets the belt wrap. So the belt will wrap around the top of this pulley, come underneath here so that it gets more crank wrap. But that puts it too close to this pulley right here. So I've changed this pulley for the blower side, and then I machined the back of it to get just enough clearance. So there's about 2.5 millimeters of clearance to the AC compressor. So all of this is extremely tight just because the width of the frame rails or the chassis here does not allow any wider of a setup. So outside of that, if you look, it's sitting on the stock subframe. The steering's in the stock position. Walk around, try not to get anybody too dizzy. So ignoring the light blowout here, you can see some of the pulley that I built. And we do have clearance to the steering rack, just barely. It's about 1/4 of an inch, so really just enough to get a belt in. And then this is the dry sump pan. So to fit the dry sump underneath here, I had to trim out, if you look at the factory subframe on an Aston Martin, it's got these extruded aluminum pieces that are welded in from the factory. So what I did is I cut out the center of that, and then I braced it with a piece of 1/2-inch aluminum that I had laser cut, and then that is welded in to that tube. And then there's a little bit more clearancing over here where I just cut it down at an angle. The plate you see with the tape on it right back here, that is the dry sump line fittings where the in and out comes. So the pump or the tank itself will be in the gap up here. So just like where it was in a stock Aston Martin. So we come back a little bit further. I have a set of C7 Corvette headers on the car. And then I'm gonna be using a C6 transaxle from a Z06. So I have a C6 Z06 torque tube, which is what you see here. And if we get down and look up, I'm a little bit off center. There we go. So it is centered in here, and it does fit up in there nicely. I've just got the back of it supported with a transmission jack and some blocks of wood. But if we spin this around and look, we can see that this is the whole drivetrain in place and everything does clear. There was a little bit of clearancing on the subframe on the driver's side US, so left side of the car for that header. Nothing too major, just a little bit of notching. And then I, again, went back and plated that back in everywhere that I modified it. So yeah, this is status so far. Next up, we're gonna step back this big hole here. This is where the transmission goes. You can see the half shafts there. So my intention is to put that as close to the centered position as I can. So that'll be the next project, is adapting mounts to this. Then once that's in place, this torque tube comes back a little bit too far. Where it sits right now, if we look, I need this surface here to be about right here. So we're gonna end up shortening that about 6 inches. We'll come down to the transaxle. So this is the C6Z transaxle, and the distance between right here and right here where the half shaft comes out, that puts the half shaft about 6 inches too far back. So what I'm gonna do is move that torque tube forward as far as I can, and then we'll have it welded back together and shortened. So the goal is just to keep as minimal of an angle in those half shafts as we can. You don't want those things at a real nasty angle. So that's where we're at so far. And looking around the rest of the garage here, so this is the transaxle and torque tube from the original Aston Martin 4.3 drivetrain. So that's the Graziano, and that is the 4.3 back behind my engine hoist. And this is the exhaust that'll be going on it. This is a Velocity AP valve exhaust, their Valvetronic setup. So that'll go back on. I'll keep it controlled by the ECU, and we'll just pretend it's a Corvette from that perspective. So yeah, that's the car so far. And I'll bring up another update once I get the transmission in the back of it.